Hello everyone, this is Rafiuddin Ahmed, and I'm attending the conference, Parliament of World Religions. I'm here today with my friend, Father Peter Cook. He is the chairman of the Council of Churches in New York, and he works very closely with our brothers and sisters in India who are being persecuted, both Muslims and Christians. So often, when I post something on my Facebook, people question whether what the content that is being posted is legitimate or not. So Father, Peter Cook works very close with the diocese of India. So I would like, Father Cook, if you could maybe tell about your experience when you traveled to India.
Let me just share a quick word about me. I am the executive director for the New York State Council of Churches. We represent 7,500 Protestant congregations in New York from 9 denominations, and we have been in existence since 1893. Speaking out against ways in which policy adversely affects the poor and the disenfranchised, both in the United States and around the world. So your question.
So I heard you speak yesterday during the round table about your trip to India when you went to visit your colleagues in India. Can you tell us about that experience?
Sure. So in 2018, I took a trip to India, and I brought with me 11 other individuals to go to India to really meet people of all faiths, to do some learning together, some traveling, some cultural awareness building, and so we went and we entered the Chennai airport. 3 of us got in, 9 of us were denied entry and turned back home. We had spent considerable resources to get there, and we never got out of the airport. When we were interrogated by security and immigration officials there at the airport, they told one of our participants that Christians were not welcome in India, and they went on to say that they didn't want Christians coming to India, that they might come and encourage, for instance, Dalits in their quest for freedom. They were worried that we might come and speak out against the caste system, which of course we do, and that we might bring money into the country to help people who are poor and disenfranchised, which could lead to conversion of people to Christianity. Of course, we said we were not there really to do any of those things, but that didn't matter. And so we had all our passports, put through their computer. We demanded to be able to contact our hosts from the Church of South India. They refused us. The State Department was not able to respond to our needs, and after several hours, we were put back on a plane and sent back to New York.
Just because you were a Christian?
Because we were
leader.
Christian. And they just made a lot of assumptions about what we were there to do. And we do not come out of a Christian tradition where we are trying to save or convert people, but we live our lives through listening and caring for the poor and the disenfranchised, and that's what we do as Christians.
So, Peter, let me ask you a question. So, I know Hindu religious leaders, they travel pretty extensively in America. And I don't think there's any restriction on that.
No.
What is your message to our elected officials and to an average American, who's listening to me? What can they do?
So, first of all, I think it's helpful for Americans to be aware that our experience going to India is not unique. This regularly happens to Americans traveling to India if any religious motivation is ascribed to them. And so Americans need to be aware of that, and they need to be cautious if they choose to travel to India. But the other thing I would just say is that it's really frustrating to us that in this country we will welcome operatives from the Modi government to come and speak without limit in our country, to stir up prejudice and hate, to play into America's worst sensibilities about racism and fascism, and to really speak out in ways which are destructive in this country to build a case for Hindu nationalism in India. And there's no travel restriction placed on them. I think it's really ironic that Modi himself was granted a visa to come to the United States to speak to a joint session of Congress and to be hosted at a state dinner when he is the primary propagator of all of this hate and destruction. And why he was granted a visa, Americans who come to his country who have much more peaceable intentions and are not trying to undermine anybody are denied entry and harassed.
So I want to ask you a question about that. There was an organization in Houston, Texas, that they were doing a fundraiser. Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about what that money was being used in India?
Yeah. So this was in Frisco, Texas, and basically this organization, which has ties to the Hindu nationalist government, was doing a fundraiser to raise money to destroy 15 Christian churches in India. And this was just outrageous. That this 501c3, which is made possible with United States tax dollars, was funneling money to destroy Christian churches in India. And so a lot of us spoke out of all faiths against what happened there. But this is just an example of how other nonprofits can use their 501c3 status to fund activities in India that would be in violation of the Geneva Convention.
So, Peter, I myself am a Muslim, and there were some, Muslim groups like ISIS and Al Qaeda and stuff. They were doing some wrong stuff, terrorist work. Mm-hmm. And as a Muslim American, I was always asked to denounce those groups, which I happily did because they did not represent my religion. And so what should an average American Hindu should be doing at this time? Because, Modi came and many of the Hindu Americans, they posted pictures with Modi and they proudly were welcoming him and all. And Modi being the prime person behind all this ethnic cleansing going on. What is your message to to the Hindu American, and especially those who are running for election, right? And they want to represent Americans here in this country. Do they have a responsibility?
So let me begin by answering that question through my own faith. You're Muslim, and you spoke out against these groups because they were distorting your faith.
Exactly.
I, as a Christian, speak out a lot against Christian nationalism here because it distorts my faith as a Christian. And we cannot confuse pronouncements from the government using Christian terms as the same thing as Christianity. So some sort of talk about America as a Christian country. We are not a Christian country. We are a country that has a constitution that protects the rights of everyone to be able to express their faith and not have any one religion instituted by the government. So with that background, when I'm speaking to our Hindu brothers and sisters here in the United States, I'm saying the same thing. Do not confuse the Modi government with Hinduism. Those are separate things. And really, in a lot of ways, religion gets used as a pretext or as a cover to assert strategic power, economic power, and we manipulate religion for those ends. And we think that, Prime Minister Modi and so many people in his government, and then bringing his nationalist message to the United States, distorts Hinduism. So what I want to say now to our American politicians here is many of them would be close to what we call Christian nationalists. They have a very narrow view of what Christianity means. But in addition, they are not willing to speak out when Christians are being persecuted in India. And why is that? Well, the reason is that they want to embrace the Modi government's antagonism towards Muslims. And so a lot of times Christian politicians have a lot of Islamophobia and will support governments who further their anti-Muslim ends. The second reason is that they receive money and donations from many Hindu-based donors here in the United States, and they don't want to upset their donor base. The third reason is that they strategically are trying to build up India as a foil against China and their anti-communist agenda. And so these things are more important to them than speaking up for the rights of Christians in their country, and in India, and really in the United States. And that these more strategic financial interests are what are more important to them, and they're willing to throw people of the Christian faith under the bus for political expedience.
So we'll conclude with your final message to an average American, regardless of their faith, regardless of their ethnicity. What can they do to help those, who are going through these atrocities in India? What can they do to help those who are helpless in India?
Well, one of the main things I think that we can constantly do is to call on the Biden administration to adopt the recommendation of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom to designate India as a country of particular concern. 4 years in a row, the Commission has made that recommendation, and 4 years in a row, both the Trump and the Biden administrations have refused to adopt that recommendation. So I would constantly be talking to one's congressperson and the administration, if I'm an American citizen, as to when they are going to finally speak out and designate India as a country of particular concern. The other thing I would just say here in the United States is be aware of efforts underway to not discriminate against people on the basis of caste. This happened in Seattle, where there was a resolution passed. But if you speak out, as Americans should, for equality for all people, to really get behind any initiative that would name caste as an inappropriate discriminatory practice. And then a third thing is that I would be pressuring the Biden administration to put pressure on the Modi government to ease up on their rules for foreign contributions coming into the country. Many Americans are members of American churches that for charitable reasons want to send money overseas and to India to help those who are poor, those who are affected by the COVID crisis, those who want to be access to medical care and education, and we are prevented from doing so because the receiving organizations in India can often have their ability to receive foreign contributions withdrawn. So if you are sitting in a pew in your American church and they are talking about trying to help poor people in India, ask a few more questions as to whether you can really use your money to make that possible or not.
Peter, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. God bless you.